All right, so we have a Rocky Road suspension lift. It's gonna be 2 inches. We got them on a compass, 2016 compass. Right now we're measuring where we're at right now. It looks like we're about 30.5 inches. We'll see if we can lift it up to 2 inches, make sure that we got it. So 30.5, and here we have 30 and 7/8, so about 31 inches there. So we'll, right now we just broke the lug nuts. We're gonna take one tire off, and we'll let y'all know what's next. These are the nuts that hold the strut. We're gonna take these 3 out. According to the instructions, these nuts will be reused on the spacers. Down here is the strut. We're gonna take this nut off, and we're gonna take these bottom 2 off as well. We may end up loosening all this cable, so we don't want anything getting stretched, and we'll literally droop the suspension down, remove it, put a spacer up top. We'll show you that in a second. All right, so the nuts are out up here. We've took the 2 nuts holding these bolts and the one holding the sway bar. You do have to tap them out. Use the rubber mallet to tap them out. If you look at the bolt, those little lines up at the top by the nut there, they're pressed in, so you do have to tap them out. After that, they become loose, and you just kind of unscrew them out. This whole setup will come loose, allowing the strut to come out. And then we'll put the spacers on, guys. Do loosen these lines. You don't want anything pulling or tearing. You got an ABS line and the brake line. All right, so the bolt pattern is up here. What we found out is these actually rotate up top. So we slipped them in, put the nuts, and then literally grabbed the strut and rotated it to align with the bottom bolts. We did have to use the jack to raise suspension up just enough to then align and push in on the bolts so they could align. They provide a bracket to extend the sway bar, and we're connecting it now. So we took these lines, put them back on. The ABS was pretty tight. We actually loosened the crimp up here, slid it up, and put it upside down, again, to give us a little more room. We may end up having to bend this bracket. We're gonna check it in a minute when we turn the wheel to make sure that the brake line is not too tight and it's not gonna tear loose. That's the most important line. This being your ABS, not as critical. Brake line, definitely critical. So we'll check that. We're also gonna raise the whole suspension up and tap the nut where the axle goes in. This is the axle right here. Also be careful when you are doing this work, you don't tear this boot, otherwise you'll be replacing your axle. But per instructions, the axle may come loose even if it looks fine. So you definitely want to make sure you tap it in so you don't end up with any vibrations or damage to your axle. So we did the front side, did the other side the same exact way. We were at 30 and 7/8. Now we're at 33 1/4, almost 33 1/2. I'm sure it'll settle some, but it definitely is 2.5 inches right there. So now we're in the back. We removed the tire and we loosened the one bolt that goes up on the strut. There's 2 bolts up top. I'll show y'all in a minute. Right now he's loosening up this control arm. There's 2 bolts, one on this end and one pretty far deep in by the fuel tank. So here we are in the back of the Jeep. As we go in, we remove the spare tire cover. You'll see it'll look like this. We took that little cover off and flipped it up. It may end up breaking, no worries. The cover for the spare tire will actually block that and keep that from being seen. This right here is just a foam that's on there. As you can see on this side, flipped it up, took this foam out, and you can see there's 2 bolts up top. I'll see if I can point them out to you guys. There is the 1 bolt for the strut right there. So I came in at it from this little box. And then on the other side, right behind the harness, there it is, there's the other bolt. So you have 2 bolts. You'll loosen both of those out. That releases the strut to come down. Again, it's inside the vehicle behind these panels. So here we've flipped this part up. I'm pulling the foam out. We'll put it all back. And just like the other side, you can now reach those bolts. can reach this one through this hole, and it might be a little easier to flip this up and reach the other side. So this is the strut, one of the struts, just like the front. The front has 3, this one has 2, but essentially the spacer goes on top. Existing nuts bolt on the spacer, and then the new spacer is provided with new nuts and bolts, which will then go into the original holes in the car. It was a little bit more difficult, not difficult to the sense that it can't be done by a backyard mechanic, but a little more difficult than the front in my opinion, just because more bolts had to be removed. So here we are putting the arm, sway bar arm. In order to take the strut off, not only did we take the 2 bolts and the 1 bolt down below, we ended up having to take this sway bar connect section off to lower the whole bar, and then take the strut off from inside the hole. We're gonna use a jack, push it up, line it up to the hole. So here's the finished product. We've lifted the front and back. The back was definitely a little bit tougher, especially with that arm. That was kind of a mess to try to put in. It took us about 2 hours on the front, and I would say about 3 on the back, give or take. So you're looking at 5 to 8 hours, if you know, depending. There was 2 of us. Gives it a good stance. We can show you the measurements on the wheel wells now compared to what we started with. So I believe we were.
Yep, it went down on the front a little bit.
All right, so we're at 32, almost 32 and a half. We're at 32 and 3/8, 32 and a half. Yeah, I'd say 32 and a half. And if I'm not mistaken, we started at 30.
I believe, yeah.
So that's 32 and a half. That's 2.5 inches right there. It may settle some. And on the back, I don't remember what it was, but we are at
33.
Just a hair over 33. So we're at 33. So it definitely gave it enough room that we can now go bigger tires, maybe a little more aggressive. Hope y'all enjoyed the video. Hope it's helpful. If you have any questions, just let me know in the comments. And if you would, just like and subscribe to help me as well. Okay, upon test driving it, we were hearing a click. The kit actually says when you mess with this suspension, as this goes down, it can actually pull this axle out from its housing back here in the differential right there. So we decided we stopped. We took the cotter pin out, loosened this up, whacked it in there, hammered it in. We're putting it all back together, and we're gonna see if that does the trick. We'll keep you updated. But we were hearing a clicking. In some cases, maybe people will not hear a clicking. They'll feel a vibration. But you want to make sure that when you let that suspension down, that it didn't pull the axle out. Even if it looks fine, you have to hit it. We actually did that, but apparently not enough.